A land grotesque as its people. You dreamt of utopia. You saw the tribes united as one.
Oh.
That dream died long ago. You should have done the same. Your kingdom will perish alongside you. By my hand.
I'm not going to waste your guys' time on this review because you honestly need to know this just off jump, right? No cap, no lies, or whatever the kids are saying nowadays. Metaphor ReFantazio is a goddamn masterpiece. If there's one game that you play this year, if it's not Silent Hill 2 Remake, which is also a masterpiece, if it's not Persona 3 Reload, if it's not Yakuza, or rather the correct name, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, this is the one game you need to play this year. And honestly, it's probably the game of the decade. Because from the get-go, Metaphor ReFantazio captures you. Now, you may be thinking, okay, this is another Atlus game. This is just another take on the Persona formula. Very easy to make that type of assumption. There is some accuracy in it because there are a lot of things that do carry over from Persona. But all the fluff of Persona is completely taken out, and this game is an absolute masterpiece. 10 out of 10. Like, honestly, 10 out of 10. Perfection. All those review scores you've been seeing where people are giving it 5 out of 5s or 10 out of 10s, yeah, my rating system is 5 out of 5. This game, from my rating system, is a 10 out of 10. This game is so phenomenal. All right, now, gotta give you guys a bit of a heads up. I was given a review copy from Atlus to cover this game, so yeah, I didn't actually buy the copy, and they actually gave me a couple codes, so I played it across multiple platforms. But like I do with every game that I get a review code for, I went out and bought a physical copy. And I got the collector's edition because my God, is this game great. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the review. Again, thank you to Atlus for providing the review copy. And yes, TLDR again, second time I'm saying this, or maybe the third, fourth, fifth, I don't know. Game's a masterpiece. Go out and buy it. Let me go ahead and tell you why. Metaphor ReFantazio is a fascinating new venture for Atlus. After being in development for 7 years, since it was first announced as Project ReFantasy, it finally arrives as a completely standalone RPG, independent of any previous titles. Unlike a new Persona or a Shin Megami Tensei spinoff, it is an entirely fresh experience. It's not a sequel or a continuation of any kind of either of those two franchises, although technically those two franchises are one, because Persona, for a lot of modern fans who don't know this, is a spinoff of Shin Megami Tensei. Technically, Shin Megami Tensei If is what created the Persona line, and so we go from there. And then you also got Soul Hackers, Digital Devil Saga, Devil Summoner. There's some meat, right? But yes, this has nothing to do story-wise. Thematically, is a lot of Persona elements as well as S&T elements, but nonetheless, you don't need to have played any of those games to hop into Metaphor ReFantazio. Let's keep going. While it borrows elements from some of Atlus's previous games, Metaphor ReFantazio combines various mechanics into a unique setting with its own identity. When it was first revealed, Atlus also introduced Studio Zero, the new internal team tasked with bringing this ambitious project to life. Studio Zero's previous work include Catherine Full Body, which is an expanded version of the 2011 game Catherine. Metaphor ReFantazio absolutely exceeded my expectations. Initially, I was unsure of what to expect from it. The more I played, honestly, the more impressed I became. And despite a few flaws, it stands out as one of Atlus's most remarkable titles and one of the absolute best games of 2024. The story starts with a dramatic event, the assassination of the king in a fantasy realm of Uchronia. Players take on the role of a young man, guided by the fairy Gallica. tasked with delivering an important letter. This mission soon leads to his involvement in a plot to assassinate Louis, the man responsible for the king's death. And although revenge is part of the protagonist's goal, his deeper motivation lies in helping the prince ascend the throne. The prince, however, is under a curse that slowly drains his life. One way to break the curse is by killing its caster, but complications arise when the king's magic intervenes from beyond the grave. The late king's magic declares that the next ruler of Uchronia will be chosen through an election, with anyone in the kingdom eligible to participate. Louis, being highly respected for his military accomplishments, is protected by the king's magic, making him, in all essence, untouchable. The protagonist, realizing Louis may have the knowledge needed to lift the curse, decides to compete for the throne, hoping to gain enough influence to catch Louis' attention. This election-based narrative creates an opportunity for world building and character development in a way that feels absolutely natural. And while Persona and Shin Megami Tensei typically rely on modern-day social norms, look, I just gotta say this. As much as I'm a fan of Shin Megami Tensei as well as of the Persona franchise and all the various SMT spinoffs, I am a 36-year-old man. At this point, I'm tired of dealing with high schoolers, right? You know, the whole social link and all the other stuff. While this game does have social links, just rebranded to something else. I'm just tired of playing video games or watching anime where the characters are teenagers. At my age, and yes, I'm dating myself, and some people may be like, oh, it's a video game, bro, get over it. Nonetheless, I'm someone who, I'm so far past high school. For me, high school was 25 plus years ago, right? I'm past that point in life. And the fact that this game, Metaphor ReFantazio, really dives into like the political intrigue and you know, secession of the throne and different, you know, political factions and so many things going on. There's so many story elements happening at one time, various character motivations and so much more. This, for me, just resonates with me because, I mean, if you look at everyday life, right? Look at politics, look at, you know, different things that go on, office politics, if you work a 9 to 5, this type of story can resonate with you. It's not something where you have to suspend your disbelief of teenagers having this level of maturity that realistically they wouldn't have because, you know, plot armor and narrative demands it. This is very realistic and some of the absolute best writing. And also the fact that it touches on a lot of real life topics, such as, you know, slavery, racism, classism, right? So much is touched on, and it's touched on in such a chef's kiss way that it's not preachy, it's in your face, but I mean, it's realistic about being in your face. I mean, I'm Samoan, Hawaiian, Tongan, and Black and Dominican. I was born in Western Samoa, but I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. And because I have dark skin, I experienced a lot of racism. And I'm not trying to get on a high horse and preach to you guys, but like a lot of the stuff that you experience as Eldia in this game, well, I understand that because when I was living in the South in the early 90s and mid 90s and late 90s and the early 2000s, I experienced a lot of that. So that is very accurate. And I'm not trying to preach and you know, go woke or anything like that, but I'm just saying that for a game to beautifully convey what it's like to be stereotyped against and to have racism thrown at you, this does it in such an elegant way. And I just love it. But anyway, let's get back to the review. Metaphor ReFantazio builds a completely new fantasy world with its own established social structure centered around 8 tribes. The game does not shy away from tackling difficult subjects like discrimination, which is a key theme in the story. The protagonist belongs to the Elder tribe, a group often looked down upon by others, and the game's mechanics reflect this social bias. For example, church services cost more, and some shops will just straight up refuse service altogether. Magic in this world is reserved for the wealthy, with spells cast through expensive igniter devices. The protagonist and his group, however, have access to magic through their own unique methods, setting them apart from the social norms of Uchronia. The game acknowledges the injustices of the existing social order, but does not provide an easy solution. Because realistically, there is no easy solution to this. And while we can just be like, yeah, end racism, blah, 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 you also have to re-educate a lot of people on why that's wrong. And that is something that takes time, especially when some of that deep-seated hate is really there for generations. And that's been passed down for generations. So you got to work through that. And this game maturely and realistically handles it. Let's keep going. The main quest itself isn't about doing good for the sake of it, but instead explores the difficult choices necessary for a better future. The group understands that Uchronia is unfair and hopes that by helping the prince rise to power, he might address these social issues. Louis, the antagonist, is well developed from the very beginning. His charismatic yet oppressive presence is felt whenever he's on screen, something that Atlus has honestly struggled with in other recent games. And unlike Persona 5 Royal's Meraki, who was introduced late into the game, Louis appears from the start, establishing a tense dynamic between him and the protagonist. Other candidates vying for the throne each have their own visions for the future. Some want to preserve the current system, while others seek to change or even completely overthrow it. The game thoughtfully explores what makes an ideal ruler without handing out easy answers. And honestly, on the surface, Metaphor ReFantazio's structure seems very similar for Persona fans, especially with its calendar system and daily activities. Once the game opens up, players will spend time deciding how to use afternoon and evening segments. Activities that advance the clock are clearly marked, much like Atlus's other popular RPGs. And despite the similarities, Metaphor ReFantazio introduces several changes that give it its own distinct identity. For instance, instead of a high school setting, players travel through various towns, villages, and cities. And during their stays, they can engage in social link-like interactions by increasing their bonds with their followers, boosting social stats, or exploring dungeons in the Gauntlet Runner. A key distinction is the time it takes to travel. Moving between locations on the Gauntlet Runner can take several days, adding a sense of journeying across the land. And look, Atlus provides quirky explanations for certain game mechanics. They always typically do, but in this case, for instance, in this game, music is explained as a spell cast by Gallica. Fast travel is also amusingly contextualized, though the reasoning is truthfully a bit far-fetched, if I'm being honest. It's appreciated nonetheless for reducing travel time when revisiting previous locations. The game's take on social links is reflected in its follower system, and unlike Persona, where the hidden affection meters determine progress, Metaphor ReFantazio makes it clear when a follower is ready to level up. Dialogue choices don't influence bond progression as much, however, but correct responses grant additional MAG, or MAG, a resource that's used for unlocking skills. The game features a wide variety of characters from different social standings and backgrounds, and more. The stories tied to followers tend to be a bit more somber, dealing with loss and the harsh realities of Uchronia. The absence of romance strengthens the narrative, honestly, focusing instead on meaningful platonic relationships. And although these interactions are compelling, I truthfully wish for more character interplay beyond just the main character and the follower. Only the first and final ranks events are fully voiced, which is truthfully a disappointment when compared to Persona 3 Reload's fully voiced social links. And again, one of the biggest departures from Persona is in combat. Metaphor ReFantazio blends real-time action with turn-based mechanics, which is reminiscent of Nihon Falcom's Trails through Daybreak. Players can choose to activate turn-based combat after stunning enemies, making exploration feel more fluid. The ability to bypass weaker enemies by stunning them speeds up dungeon exploration, and depending on the equipped archetype, the protagonist's weapons and abilities change, adding variety to real-time combat. Now, in turn-based combat, players use the press turn system that's familiar to fans of Shin Megami Tensei, along with Etrian Odyssey's front and back row positioning. Players can swap rows during combat, and exploiting enemy weaknesses grants additional turns. A returning feature from Atlus's digital Devil Saga games is the combination of synthesis skills, allowing party members to team up for powerful attacks. These skills don't require specific meters, as seen in Shin Megami Tensei 5, making them, honestly, more flexible and strategic. And look, combat is challenging, with enemies hitting hard and bosses requiring players to adjust strategies on the fly. Although the retry option allows for easy do-overs, it can feel too forgiving at times, removing some of the tension from battle. But then again, that could be a good thing. The archetype system is another highlight, which is essentially functioning like traditional RPG job classes. Each archetype has its own strengths and weaknesses, and characters can swap between them freely by spending mag. Players can even use the same archetype across party members, offering a wide range of customization. And as players bond with followers, they unlock more skill slots for archetypes, allowing for deeper party customization. Skills learned in one archetype can be transferred to others, creating endless combinations. The progression system is rewarding, with players continuing to earn experience for mastered archetypes, which can be used to boost other classes. Now, one unexpected aspect of Metaphor ReFantazio is its dungeon crawler nature. Story dungeons are expansive and introduce varying mechanics to keep exploration engaging. And while not as grueling as Etrian Odyssey, these dungeons are still satisfying to navigate, with plenty of puzzles and hidden areas to discover. Smaller dungeons offer unique layouts, although the environments can become repetitive over time. Enemies are well organized within dungeons, often traveling in packs or formations that reflect the world's internal logic. This attention to detail makes the dungeons feel more alive and cohesive. The game's informants and taverns provide useful tips and intel, offering guidance on side quests and dungeon challenges without spoiling the experience. Now, I gotta talk about the game's art direction, as it's honestly striking. It combines medieval high fantasy, especially dark high fantasy elements, with a unique 1960s inspired level of fashion. Creatures like goblins, dragons, and minotaurs populate the world, while the Gauntlet Runner is a visually distinctive landship. The Academia, inspired by Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, offers a compelling reimagining of the Velvet Room concept. And after the success of Persona 5's stylish UI, Metaphor ReFantazio continues a trend with menus that are responsive and visually appealing. The painterly design sets it apart, although the archetype tree could be, truthfully, a little bit more user-friendly. And despite its strong artistic direction, the game's graphics, in some areas, it falls a bit short. Character models and towns are, truthfully, merely adequate. And certain outdoor environments are noticeably muddy. This contrast is particularly evident on the Gauntlet Runner's deck, where the graphical quality is surprisingly poor. And I played this game. Like I said, I got a review code over this game for the PlayStation 5 as well as the Xbox Series X, but I also went and purchased the game for Steam. So I just gotta say, across the board, I ran into some visual glitches, like it would look like it's skipping. I don't know if I can really accurately reproduce that or show you in this gameplay that I've recorded. It is what it is, but there's a lot of anti-aliasing issues. The PC version does have those problems too, with performance dips here and there when increasing rendering scale. While patches have been released, they haven't fully resolved these issues. And I played this on my gaming desktop, which has a 3070 Ti, my gaming laptop, which has a 4080 Super, and also on my ROG Ally and Lenovo Legion Go. And I still ran into these issues across the board. Now, granted, I kind of expected that on the Lenovo Legion Go and the ROG Ally, but on my gaming desktop and gaming laptop, I kind of thought the performance would be much better than what it is. But that being said, patches will probably fix that in the future. Now, despite all of those technical flaws, which in the grand scope of things is relatively minor, Metaphor ReFantazio is an absolute classic. This is a fantastic game. I spent well over 75 hours completing it, and I enjoyed every moment of it. The game offers a richly detailed world, compelling character interactions, and a deep combat system, making it a worthy addition to Atlus's legacy. The blend of old and new mechanics, combined with this fresh setting, makes Metaphor ReFantazio an excellent RPG experience. It's a bold new IP, and Atlus has delivered a standout title. And with that being said, that is a review for Metaphor ReFantazio. Again, one of the greatest games of all time, one of the greatest games of this decade. And for me, I got to put a score on it, right? Typically, my ratings are between 1 to 5, or 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5. This game is a 10. 10 out of 5. That makes sense. That's how good this game is. With that being said, thank you to Atlus for providing a review copy of the game. Yeah. Let me know what you guys think of it. If you picked it up, did you get the collector's edition? Are you loving it? Whatever your thoughts are, let's get the conversation going in the comment section down below. If you want to pick up the game, it'll pop up here on YouTube, and also I'll have it in the description as well as the first pinned comment. All that being said, catch you guys in the next one. Stay safe, be blessed, have a lot. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, and we hope.